Welcome to my channel, Knitting for Baby. Thanks for watching. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to knit this hat for adults. It's very easy to make. The stitch that I use to make this hat is the seed stitch, and I use super chunky yarn. Now stay tuned for the baby version. I'll go ahead and do that as well. Okay, let's get started, but first don't forget to subscribe, share my tutorials, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Okay, to knit this hat, I'll be using these 8mm circular knitting needles. My needles are 64-inch long. You can also use 16-inch to knit this hat in the round. I'm going to be making this hat in the round using the magic loop technique. And I'll be using this super bulky number 6 yarn. Down here in the information box, I'll leave the name of the yarn that I'm using. I also went ahead and did a little sample here. This is the stitch that I'm going to use. It's called the seed stitch. Now my gauge here, I have 8 rows in 2 inches and then 5 stitches across. So 5 stitches across and then 8 rows in 2 inches. So if you want to match up my gauge, that's what I have. Now what we're going to do here is we need to cast on our stitches. I need to do a total of 54 stitches. So I'm going to show you how to cast on your stitches using the long tail cast on. The first thing that we need to do is we're going to wrap the yarn around 20 times. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now remove the yarn. So here we have enough yarn for about 20 stitches. I'm going to double it up. Here's enough yarn for about 40. Double it up again. It's going to be enough for about 60 stitches. I'm going to leave it like this. It's best to have a little bit left than have to remeasure again. So here we're going to make a slip knot. Now insert your needle through this slip knot. This yarn here is the one which is measured, and this here is coming from the skein. Now insert your finger like this and open the yarn. We're going to go from left to right and we're going to grab a loop. And now I'm going to do a total of 54 stitches. Continue like this until you have 54 stitches, and then I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. Okay, I finished casting on my stitches. I have a total of 54 stitches here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to split our stitches in half. You don't have to be precise, just eyeball it there, half, and then just pull here the wire like this. Now make sure that this yarn is always in front of this needle here. And now we're going to join in the round. So to join in the round using the magic loop technique, what I like to do is pull the needle from the back, and we're going to start with the first stitch here on this needle. So I'm going to do a knit stitch, and then I'm going to purl. Here we're joined. Now the next stitch I'm going to purl. The next one, knit. Next one, purl. Knit, purl. Next one, knit. So knit and purl all the way to the end. Here's my last stitch. This stitch here is going to be a knit for me. For you, it might be a purl. So for me, it's a knit. I need to start with a purl. Now drop that needle, turn, push your cable, and grab the needle from the back. Now this next stitch, like I said, I need to do a purl because I'm going to continue with the same sequence here. And then knit and purl. I'm going to do this to the end of this first row. I'll meet you there to show you what we need to do next. I'm here at the end of this first row. Here's my last stitch. Make sure that this last stitch here is a purl, because if it's a knit, somewhere along this first row you have either two knits or two purls together. It happened to me. I had to undo this row and come back here and fix one of the stitches. But now we're done with the first row, so turn, push your cable, grab the needle from the back, and here we're going to do the same thing. This here is going to be the brim. So the first stitch here is a knit, so we're going to knit. The next stitch is a purl, so we're going to purl, knit, and purl, knit and purl. This is all I'm going to do, and this is the same row that we're going to repeat for the brim. I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do here. It all depends how wide I want my brim to be, but continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do. So from here on, you're just going to continue on your own and work these rows where you just knit and purl. So if you see a purl stitch, you purl. If you see a knit stitch, you knit. The purl stitch has this little bar right in front, so you purl, and the knit stitch doesn't have a little bar in front. It's like a V. So you knit. I'm going to show you here once again how to transition from one needle to the other. Here's my last stitch. Drop that needle, turn, push your cable, and then start again. This stitch here, I need to purl, the next one knit, and so on. This is all we're going to do. Continue watching. I'll let you know how many rows I'm going to do here for my brim, so I will meet you at the end of that row. Okay, I'm here at the end of the 6th row, so I only did 6 rows here for the brim. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you can make this wider or less wide, that's fine, that's up to you. I did 6 rows here. Now in order for me to continue with this pattern here, which is the seed stitch, I need to add one more stitch. I want to make sure that at the end of this row I have 55 stitches. So in order to add an extra stitch, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go right in the middle here. I still have one last stitch for this 6th row, so right in the middle of these 2 stitches I'm just going to go in like this and put this stitch like this in my needle, and I'm going to knit this stitch through the back. Now this last stitch I'm going to purl. So now at the end of this 6th row, I have 55 stitches. This stitch here, you need an odd number of stitch in order for it to work out. So now we're going to turn here. So we're going to begin our pattern. I would put a stitch marker here. I'm going to put it on the cable right there. Now this stitch marker here is going to tell us that it's the beginning of the row, so once we start the new row we're going to switch the stitches around. Now this first stitch here is a knit. In this row I am going to purl. The next stitch is a purl, so I'm going to knit. The next stitch I'm going to purl, knit, purl. So you basically do the opposite of what you did in the last row. See, knit and purl, knit and purl, knit and purl. So you purl the knit stitches and you knit the purl stitches. Let's see, make sure that you don't lose count. So this was purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, knit and purl. Drop that needle, turn, and then do the same thing. This here is a purl, so I'm going to knit. The next one is a knit, so I'm going to purl. So it's the opposite of what you do on the previous row. It's a very easy stitch, beautiful stitch. I love this stitch. I think I'm going to do a baby hat using this stitch here for my baby niece. I've been commissioned to make winter baby hats for her, so stay tuned. I think I'm going to be making lots of baby hats in this channel. Here's the stitch that we added. You just do the opposite, knit and then purl, purl. Drop that needle, turn. Now push this cable, put this stitch marker here on this needle, grab the needle here, and now for this second row we're going to do the opposite. Now in the first row I purl this stitch, so now I'm going to knit the first stitch. That's why it's important for you to make sure you have a stitch marker. Then the next one I'm going to purl, so knit, purl, knit, purl. So knit and purl. That's all I'm going to do. Again, I'm going to show you how to transition from one needle to the other. And knit the last stitch, drop this needle, turn your work, push your cable, pull the needle from the back and continue. This is a purl, so I'm going to knit, so this here I need to purl, knit, purl, and so on. I'm going to speed this up so that I can show you once again how to finish and how to start each row from here on, because you're going to continue this on your own. Here's the last stitch. Drop that needle, turn your work, push your cable, remove the stitch marker and put it on the other needle, pull the needles from the back, and start your third row. Now here we have the first stitch. I am going to purl this stitch, then I'm going to knit the next stitch, and then purl, knit, and purl. And that's all I'm going to do for the rest of the hat. And that's what it looks like. Now you're going to continue and do the same thing from here on. Eventually we're going to start to reduce, so not sure how many rows I'm going to do here. Continue watching. I'll let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do, so I will meet you at the end of that row. Okay, I did a total of 20 rows here. So we did 6 rows here for the brim, and then we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 rows. I'm at the end of the 20th row. I am not quite done. I still have 2 stitches. So what we're going to do here at the end of this row is the following. We're going to knit 2 together, because I want to make sure that at the end of this row I have an even number of stitches. If I continue and do my reductions in the next row, this part here is not going to work out. So my stitch here, 2 stitches before I finish this row, this one is a knit, so I am going to purl these 2 together. So before I do that, I'm going to remove this stitch temporarily and put it on this needle, and I'm going to change the direction of the last stitch. So put it like this, so they're both facing the same direction, and now we are going to purl 2 together. Perfect. Now at the end of this 20th row, so from here to here there's 20 rows, I have now 54 stitches, which is the same number of stitches we started here when we started the hat. Now this part here is measuring from here up to here. It's measuring about 15.5 centimeters, which is about 6.25 inches. So now, like I said, in the next couple rows we're going to now reduce to shape the crown of the hat. So what we're going to do before we continue is we need to place some stitch markers. So let's do that before we continue. Now, like I said, I have 54 stitches all around, so I'm going to, let's see, here's the first stitch marker. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. I'm going to put a stitch marker every 9th stitch. Let's see, let me count again. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and then again 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Put another stitch marker. Again 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And here we should have 9. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Perfect. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start this row. We're going to pass the stitch marker to this needle here, and I'm going to knit these stitches in the same way, knit, purl, until I come to the first 2 stitches before the stitch marker. So this next stitch here I need to purl, then I'm going to knit. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Let me do this one. Now here are my 2 stitches before the stitch marker. I think I need bigger stitch markers because they're getting stuck. There, now I have my 2 stitches before my stitch marker. This stitch here I purled, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to knit 2 together. So to do this stitch here I'm going to temporarily remove it and then put it back again like this. So I am going to knit 2 together. There, see? Now pass your stitch marker, and now we're going to continue and do the same thing for the next 7 stitches. So this stitch here I need to knit, then purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. Now what I'm going to do here is, since the first reduction here was a knit, I'm also going to knit. So from here on, all of my reductions are going to be knit two together. So here I need to change the direction of this stitch here in the back. So remove it and then put it back like this. And now we're going to knit two together. Okay. Now return your stitch marker to this side, and we're going to do the same thing for the next group of stitches. So this here I'm going to purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. Now drop that needle because I'm at the end here. Pull your cable, and now I'm going to pull this here. And now here are my 2 stitches before my stitch marker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the direction of this first stitch, and now I'm going to knit two together. If you forget to change the direction, it's okay. Now I'm going to pass the stitch here to this side along with the stitch marker, and now I'm going to continue with the next section here. So this next stitch I need to knit, then purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. Now I have my next 2 stitches. I need to knit 2 together. This one is fine. I just need to change the direction of the last one here. So now we're going to knit 2 together. Pass your stitch marker and do the same thing for the next group. So the next stitch I need to purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, and purl. I have my next 2 stitches. I need to knit 2 together, so I'm going to change the direction of the first one. So we're going to knit 2 together. Pass your stitch marker and then do the same thing for the last section. So I'm going to knit, then purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, and knit. Here are my last 2 stitches. I need to knit 2 together. This one's okay. I need to change the direction for the one in the back. And now knit 2 together. And here is the first row of reduction. Put your stitch marker here and push your cable. Pull this one, and then let's start the second row reduction. Here in between the stitch markers I have 8 stitches. So now I'm going to do this until I come to the first 2 stitches. So here, to begin the second row, this next stitch I need to knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. Now here are my last 2 stitches before my stitch marker. So I need to knit 2 together. And now pass your stitch marker and continue with the same sequence. The next stitch I need to purl. Next one, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, and then I have my 2 stitches before my stitch marker, knit 2 together. Pass your stitch marker and then continue and do the next group. Next stitch is a knit, purl, and then knit, purl, knit, and purl. Now here are my 2 stitches. Here's my stitch marker right there. So these 2 I need to knit 2 together, so I need to change the direction of this stitch, and now I can knit 2 together. There. Pass your stitch marker, drop that needle, and now let's continue and do the next section. This next stitch I need to purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. The next 2 I need to knit 2 together. Pass your stitch marker and continue. A knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. Okay, this one I need to change the direction because I'm going to knit 2 together. Pass your stitch marker and let's finish this last section together. So the next stitch I need to purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. Here are my last 2 stitches, knit 2 together. Perfect. So here is the second row of reduction. Now you're going to continue on your own. I've already showed you 2 rows here of what you need to do, so I hope you see exactly what we're doing here. So continue like this all around until we have 1 or 2 stitches left in between the stitch markers, and all you're going to do before the stitch marker is knit 2 together, and then the stitches in between you work them in the same way as the pattern, the opposite of what you did in the previous row. Continue, and then I'll come back and show you how we're going to close the top of the hat. Okay, I finished making my reductions. I only have 1 stitch in between the stitch markers, so now I've already cut my yarn. I left a nice little tail here, so I'm going to now remove these stitches that are left. I have 5 stitches left in total. So now we're going to go, this is my last stitch here, so I'm going to remove this next stitch, remove the stitch marker, remove the next stitch. I have 3 stitches here. Make sure you don't close this here yet. Here's the next one, this one, Next one. And here's the last one. Now pass this yarn here through this stitch here, and now just pull, and that closes the top of the hat, and that's what it looks like. Now just put this through the inside and then just hide your ends. I'm going to do that afterwards, but here's the finished hat. Let's see. Here's the hat. All we have to do is just hide our ends, and that's what it looks like from the top. And here it is. My chunky beanie hat is all done using the seed stitch. Okay, so this was today's tutorial. I hope you like it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.